Pulp Trump Fiction Stories presents Episode 2, Jesus Inc. The church had originally scheduled a perfectly ordinary sermon. Father Donnelly intended to spend 20 measured minutes discussing the Beatitudes, followed by coffee, polite handshakes, and mild complaints about parking. Instead, history happened, or at least something aggressively adjacent to history. The sanctuary was peaceful that morning. Sunlight filtered through stained glass windows in soft reds and blues. Elderly women clutched folded bulletins. A baby cried somewhere near the back. A man in a Bills jacket quietly snored through the opening hymn. Father Donnelly adjusted his glasses. "And so we remember," he said gently. "Blessed are the poor in spirit." The side doors suddenly burst open. Donald Trump entered the church, flanked by Stephen Miller and two bewildered Secret Service agents who looked spiritually unprepared for what was happening. Trump paused dramatically halfway down the aisle. People gasped. One woman accidentally dropped an entire travel mug full of tea into her purse. Trump pointed toward the altar. "Continue," he commanded. Father Donnelly blinked nervously. Blessed are the meek." Trump slowly climbed the altar steps. "Can I?" he said, already taking the microphone. The priest hesitated just long enough for Trump to interpret silence as surrender. Trump turned towards the congregation. "Frankly," he began, "I've always had a problem with the Beatitudes." The church froze. "Too negative." Stephen Miller nodded from the front pew with cultish enthusiasm. Trump continued, "No offense, Father, but Beatitudes? Very low energy, very weak branding." Father Donnelly looked moments away from contacting the Vatican emergency hotline. Trump pointed dramatically. "What America needs now," he jabbed his finger into his own chest, "is A attitudes." A strange murmur rolled through the crowd. "No more B- attitudes, no C+ attitudes. Frankly, we're being bored to death." Several confused audience members accidentally nodded. Trump paced in front of the altar, like a motivational speaker trapped inside of a fever dream. "I was telling Stephen the other day." Stephen leaned forward immediately. "Blessed are the poor, sells nothing." Trump pointed triumphantly upward. "Blasted are the poor." A few scattered chirps emerged. Some claps. Then Stephen started applauding furiously to normalize it. Trump gained momentum instantly. "Wasted are the weak." More applause. "Forgotten are the fearful." A woman near the middle pew whispered, "I don't think that's scripture." But the room had already begun shifting. The weird electricity was back. The dangerous social static energy Trump would generate when confidence overwhelmed logic. "And queer," Trump announced grandly, "are the questioners." Half the room gasped. The other half looked around nervously, trying to determine whether clapping was socially required. Stephen began chanting, "A attitudes, A attitudes." 3 men in golf pullovers joined in immediately. Soon, nearly a quarter of the congregation was applauding with the vacant enthusiasm of people accidentally joining a flash mob at the apocalypse. Father Donnelly stood frozen beside the altar candles, spiritually buffering. Trump sensed blood in the water. "These," he declared, "are the things you should be teaching your children." The church split emotionally down the middle. One side sat speechless with horrified disbelief. The other side experienced the intoxicating warmth of collective certainty. It wasn't joy exactly, more like ideological carbonation. Trump continued riffing wildly. "Turn the other cheek? Terrible negotiating strategy," a man yelled. "True! Love thy neighbor? Depends on the neighbor. Laughter erupted. Forgiveness? Maybe after tariffs. Even Father Donnelly briefly looked tempted by that one. The mood swelled. It became less sermon than rally, less worship than emotional crowd surfing. By the time communion arrived, people were practically vibrating. And when the collection plates came around, the money poured in. 20s, hundreds, casino chips. One man donated a jet ski. A woman placed an entire rotisserie chicken into the basket while sobbing patriotically. Stephen Miller whispered in awe, "The harvest." But then something strange happened. Slowly, quietly, the energy began evaporating. Not instantly, more like a dream dissolving after waking. People started blinking harder, looking around, reorienting themselves. A man who had been chanting "A attitudes" suddenly looked deeply embarrassed and pretended to study a hymn book upside down. Someone quietly retrieved the rotisserie chicken. The spell was breaking, but not entirely. The scent of it remained. Trump felt it immediately, that lingering psychic humidity, that dangerous little aftertaste, the realization that maybe reality itself was becoming soft around the edges. Outside the church, Trump stood on the front steps, staring into the gray afternoon sky. Stephen approached cautiously. "Sir?" Trump smiled slowly. "The time is getting nearer." Stephen shivered. "I can feel it too." Trump turned dramatically. "It's time." "For what, sir?" Trump grabbed Stephen by both shoulders. "Trumpstafarianism." Stephen's mouth fell open. "No." "Oh, yes." "Sir, I thought it was gone." Trump pointed toward heaven. "Arisen." Thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. "Fetch the merchandise." Stephen looked emotional. "The hats, too?" "Especially the hats." "The gold sandals?" "Bring them." "The incense shaped like my hair?" Trump nodded solemnly. "All of it." Stephen sprinted toward the armored SUV like a crusader retrieving divine instructions. Trump stood alone atop the church stairs, wind blowing through his strange blonde-orange hair like the mane of a radioactive lion. Below him, parishioners slowly wandered into the parking lot, confused and disoriented, half horrified, half energized, all uncertain what exactly they had experienced. Trump smiled to himself, then whispered softly, "Jesus had loaves and fishes." He adjusted his tie. "I have branding." End episode 2.